Yeah. Yes, I got to be louder, I know. But, um, well, thank you very much for having me here. It's been a blessing and a real honor and joy to be able to celebrate the Mass with all of you. And now I'm just going to share a little bit about my vocational journey and how the Agrupación has impacted me and how St. Ignatius, the spiritual exercises, doing those have impacted my discernment and to priesthood and throughout my time as in University of Miami. So originally, I'm from New York. I grew up on Long Island. I went to a Catholic, yes, thank you. I went to a Catholic high school, Chaminade, and after high school, I went to University of Miami, and it was there, okay. It was there that I had a deepening of my faith. I had always been Catholic, my family's Catholic, but I had never truly lived with that as my sole desire and my sole purpose. It was really more of, we were Catholic, but what was the true purpose? What was our goal or my goal in life? It was not to, to go to church or to be a saint, but it was more of, we go to church on the weekends. That is very good, it's very important, but it wasn't my primary goal, my primary motivation. And that really didn't happen. That change of my focus and my purpose didn't happen until college. And it was going through the campus ministry, thanks to one of the priests there at the time, the chaplain, Monsignor Carruthers. And it was through the retreats and that ongoing asking the question, who does God want me to be? So what kind of man do I want to be? Because it was that crucial time in my life at the University of Miami. A lot of college students go through this. It's your first time away from home. So what will you do? You have the option, especially in Miami, you can do anything. But what was it that truly, drew me, and what was it that I desired? And it was through following those desires that I ended up deciding eventually, after 2 years after University of Miami, I went to Texas A&M. I got my master's. And that desire that was on my heart, but I didn't want to acknowledge it, was always the priesthood, maybe seminary. Why not be a priest? That kind of stuck in my mind. Even though I pushed it away, it continued to come back. And for any of you who've had that calling, or who've been called by the Lord, you know that sometimes it's not the easiest. You don't want to accept it, but it doesn't go away. So for me, it was that calling throughout my time in UM and in Texas A&M that kept coming back. Why not be a priest? So eventually, after discernment, joining discernment groups and going to vocation awareness weekends at St. John Vianney Seminary in Westchester, I did make that jump and that leap to enter seminary. And it was when I entered the seminary, I was at St. John Vianney, that I did have that deeper peace, that deeper feeling that this is where the Lord has truly called me. And it's because of that, many vocations directors, there was a vocation director, Father Elvis at the time, he said, John, you never know until you try it. So you can always look at the car and you think about the car, but until you actually make that leap, you jump in the pool or you test drive, you drive that car, you don't know. So it was through many prayers, through a lot of discernment, that then the Lord revealed his plan for my life. And throughout my time in seminary, I did have the opportunity to do the 30-day Ignatian retreat. So it was a silent retreat. It was led by a director, a Jesuit, who was my spiritual director for many years, Father Horn, and he led that retreat in North Dakota. Bismarck is University of St. Mary, and that was an incredible experience, one of the highlights of my life. And just being able to be in silence, you think, what will you learn in silence? But the Lord surprises you, and he surprised me. And there's so much more that God wants to share with us. And it was after that retreat, actually, that I became acquainted with the Agrupación Católica. And that was been a great blessing because those graces from that retreat have continued through this Marian Sodality. So I want to thank all of you for that, and I look forward to many years, hopefully coming back to serving you as your priest when Father allows me. And I want to thank you. And then, obviously, these past couple years, I was ordained a deacon last year for the Archdiocese of Miami, and that has been a great blessing. And now, as a priest, it's even more so. And in fact, it's overwhelming. I can't explain the amount of blessings that God has given, and He's given us myself a lifetime to unpack those. So that's very brief, broad strokes. I just painted over many years, but I'd like to open it up now for any questions you may have, and if you have any comments. So, thank you.
How many years were you in seminary?
For 7. That was how many years have I been in seminary? It was 7 years in total. So for diocesan priesthood, it's 7 years if you have a degree, and it's 9 years if you come out directly out of high school. So since I had a degree already, it was 7 years total. So you begin 2 years. The first 2 years are philosophy. That's a basis, teaching you how to think and reason. And then the theology comes next. It's 4 years of theology. So that theology builds on that philosophy. And that's the way that the church grew. And that's the way that seminary formation is done, or even if you join an order or diocesan, it's both the same.
Where are you assigned?
I'm currently at St. Gregory the Great in Plantation. So, yes, with Father Davis.
Is Father Valley still in seminary?
Father Valley is. He was an excellent, he's still teaching at seminary. So for those of you who don't know, Father Valley was a iconic staple of seminary life, and he teaches philosophy, and he's currently still teaching at St. John Vianney. He's been there for, I think, over 30, 35 years. But he's an excellent professor.
As a former Long Islander, when did you leave Long Island?
I left when I was 18 to go to the University of Miami. That was in 2011. Yes. And I've been here ever since, and 2 years in Texas.
I'll tell you a quick experience I had once on an airplane. I don't talk much, but this guy wanted to talk, and we talked. And he said, your English is pretty good, but you're not from here. And I said, no. He says, you're from New York. And I said, yeah. Long Island. And I said, you give me my address, I'll have to shoot you before we get off this airplane. So you will always be known as a Long Islander, okay?
That's true. I'm in the Florida Catholic as the New Yorker. So we had 4 of us were ordained this past week. 1 from Poland, 1 from Italy, 1 from Nicaragua, and then I was the New Yorker. So, yeah.
2 quick questions. Number 1, what do you prefer, Father John or Father Bonnie?
Father John is good.
Father John.
Yeah, Father John.
Father John. And then, have you, even at this early stage of going into it, is there any kind of particular call within the priesthood, some kind of ministry that you felt called to? The youth, the retreats? Is there anything like parish life, confession, sacrament? Is there anything in particular so far?
Well, that's an excellent question. Not clearly yet, but I do feel called currently to work with the youth. Father Davis has mentioned that he'd like, St. Gregory has a large school, and so I'll be doing a lot of work with the school and then also with the young adult ministry. So I would say right now it's with the youth, and then eventually maybe even I'd like to lead retreats or help with the exercises. Yeah.
Your first week, what's the highlight? Like, what has been the most like, wow, I just did like obviously mass. But
Yeah.
what's been really exciting the first week?
Oh, I would say the Mass. Like every time I think about it every day, I'm like, oh, I just celebrated. The first time I celebrated Mass at the seminary, and that was up in Boynton Beach, the major seminary. And I went around, we kissed the altar, and I went to sit in the deacon's chair. And I was like, no, wait, I'm the main celebrant. So it was like it's been the Mass, hearing confessions. It is unreal. So it's unbelievable how God uses you. I still feel like a deacon in many ways. So even when people call me father, I think of, I still have that deacon mindset. So, yeah. I'm a Yankees fan. Yeah.
Traitor!
Good question. Yeah.
Well, what's your biggest learning from the 2 years of studying philosophy?
Primarily, how important it is that to learn how to think correctly. So, coming from engineering into the philosophy was a difficult transition because engineering, I already took it for granted that this exists. In philosophy, you kind of question, like, what is reality? But it was how important our philosophy is and how everyone has their own particular philosophy. And kind of after learning the different philosophies, the modernists and the ancients, you see how those play out in our daily life and in movies and in culture. So just seeing different strands of thinking and how much that impacts how we approach the faith, but also our own faith. I think it's important to kind of to know a little bit, even as if not being in seminary, it's important to know philosophy because how you think and how you approach the world, that affects everyone. And everyone has a philosophy, we just don't know it yet. So for me, that was the biggest impact, was I realized, how am I thinking? How do I approach the world around me? And how is that impacting, my faith and then others? And what are the philosophies that people are maybe implicitly or explicitly presenting? Whether that's through movies, through the culture, through music. These philosophies always recycle themselves. So it's good to kind of notice and just be cognizant of what strand of thinking is being presented, and then what's my take on the world. So,
Did you have Dr. Solis or
I did.
Ramon Santos?
I did. I had
What
both.
about Ramon Santos?
I had both of them.
They're both abogados.
Yeah. They're
They
excellent.
may not say so, but they are.
Well, they're excellent.
Tony Lopez and Wood.
Yes, I had Tony Lopez for ecclesiology.
John, what attracted you to la educación as compared to synodicity? You Catholic in
Of
general.
course.
That was for you the reason that you started joining the group.
For me, it was the.
What can we do to attract people like you?
Oh, sure. Well, for me, having done the spiritual exercises, that I had that draw to the exercises of St. Ignatius and seeing that connection between the faith and reason. So having the science and the faith. So I know that a lot of you are professionals, even the idea of having that connection between like the head and the heart. So the Agrupación showed me that the exercises are meant for daily life, and it kind of helped continue that 30-day exercises that I did. This was like a continuation for me. Like, how do I live that out as a priest? The Agrupación has helped to make those connections for me between that Ignatian style of prayer and then also my service in the parish and as a priest.
Can you expand that mind and heart connection?
Yeah, so I think Mother Teresa has a famous quote: "The longest road in life is the distance between the head and the heart." So between our thoughts and our, that the head, you could say, is the thoughts are part of the heart, but it's between our thinking and our, what we maybe desire in our heart. You could say that our deepest desires, and how our thoughts connect to that. Because St. Ignatius, he focuses a lot on discernment of spirits and discernment of thoughts. So oftentimes our thoughts can lead us into prayer or they can lead us away. So for me, having that experience of prayer, maybe whether it's in the front of the Blessed Sacrament or in Eucharistic adoration or in the Mass, you can have that experience of Christ's presence, but then how the exercises kind of helped me discern like what thoughts are from God and which ones are not. So which ones connect with that experience of prayer and which ones do you set aside. So it's a renewal. St. Paul also speaks about a renewal of your mind. So that renewal of your mind occurs when we do a discernment, like which thoughts are from the Lord, which ones are not. So that discernment, that's what I found is very helpful with St. Ignatius' exercises and in the Agrupación. Because I tend to, as an engineer, you think a lot. So rather than being like an emotive, So the exercises kind of help to show me, like, how do you order those thoughts directly to God and not let them stray into, maybe self reflection or into something that's not of God, kind of. I don't know if that makes sense. But,
What kind of engineering did you study?
I did biomedical and electrical. So, electrical. Electrical. I would say the electrical was actually harder. But the biomedical was very broad, so within that, the electrical was kind of a specialized specialization.
You have studied all fields of knowledge, engineering, philosophy, theology.
All for the greater glory of God. Yeah. Yeah.
During the time of the sermon, did you evaluate the possibility of going into an order instead of becoming a member of the apostles? And if you did so, how further can you explain that?
No, it's a very good question. I think that's something seminary formation kind of leads you towards, because it leads you to evaluate what are my deepest desires, what is it what the Lord is calling me to, and then what do you desire? And part of the formation process is to evaluate, am I called to diocesan or to religious life? I had joined the seminary in Miami as a diocesan, and I felt that I had a peace there. There's a deeper peace, so that's what I decided. I continued with that. But I did have times when you do question, you do think, oh, what if I had joined an order or religious life? And those questions, I think that's also part of the discernment process, whether you're in diocesan or in religious life. I know that we have a seminarian who was a Jesuit, and after doing his 30 days, he discerned out of the Jesuits, and he's becoming a diocesan priest now. So it goes both ways. It's really being attentive to what your desires are, and then the desires of the church, and then also where God is leading you. So it goes both ways, but I felt that, at least at that time, that was the path forward is diocesan. So,
Father,
yeah.
your vocation was developed at Suntan U, okay? So what noise did you have to get out so that you could pay attention to God's call? And how did you manage to do that?
Well, it's not always easy to get rid of all the noise, especially in Miami. So I'd say you kind of want to hear God's call in the middle of the noise. So it was just a constant. I was involved with the campus ministry, so they had times of retreat, times of prayer, and it was during those times that I felt God's voice more clearly. So silence is the best. Even in the midst of the craziness of the campus, if you're attentive to it, and you have those times where you're in front of the Blessed Sacrament and you're listening for God's voice, he speaks to you. So I even had a brother seminarian mention that he was there was a club once, and he was there, and he heard in the midst of it all, in the midst of one of the songs, the Lord spoke to him, made it very clear, and he ended up leaving, and now he's becoming a priest. So God speaks at all times. Yeah. But, yes, it's the listening. Sometimes we don't listen.
John, when you are going with you to the Holy Land last year, so my question is this. 2 years ago, we went to the Camino Ignaciano in 2022. And the Camino Ignaciano, the Jesuit says, what is your cannonball moment? Cannonball moment. The year that the time that you realize, okay, I'm in to the seminary. So everyone in this room
That's it. I had multiple, but there was one that sticks out. The vocation director at the time was Father Elvis. He said, John, either you're going to come back here as a seminarian or you're going to be married. And it just like, he just put that right in front of me, and it made me make the decision. I was like, all right, I'm going to go into seminary. Yes. So I'd say that was but I had many other moments before that where the Lord was just like, we were praying with a group of priests in Texas. They were religious priests, and they said they were praying for our vocations, and all of a sudden I felt I want to be a priest. But I'd kind of pushed that down. And then the next moment was when Father Elvis said, he kind of put it right in front of me very clearly, the two choices. And so I'd say that was my main cannonball.
You have brothers and sisters?
I do. A younger brother and a younger sister.
Now, when they first learned of it, and your parents learned of it, what was their reaction?
I won't repeat their words here. But you can imagine after sending me through college, and they're from Long Island, that it took them about a year to come around. But it was amazing how God worked within that year. And even now, they're my greatest supporters. So I would just say, encourage your children, encourage those you think maybe God is calling them to the priesthood, and don't put any barriers in front. Even coming to seminary doesn't mean that you'll be a priest. It's a discernment process. And so my parents, at first, they were hesitant, but within that first year, God worked a miracle, and they both were my biggest supporters moving forward. And now. And they love me. Yeah.
And your siblings, your brothers and sisters?
They were very surprised. They were shocked too. Yeah, it was a shock. But even now, I'd say that they, like Gumersindo mentioned, they love me very much, and they're fully on board. They're very, very supportive of my vocation and even the priesthood in general. So it was a big transformation for us, seeing even the idea of priesthood, and then with growing in our faith. It's amazing how the Lord works when you say yes to Him. How He transforms even your family. So they're big. My brother and sister have had their own conversions even while I've been in the seminary. So yeah, amazing. Praise God.
What are you doing with your engineering knowledge?
I don't know yet. Yeah. I have time to find out. Yeah.
You could do a PhD in bioethics.
That's very possible. Or medical ethics. Yeah.
When you mentioned that you were going, that your boss now told you about the school, I said, that's good. He's going to be very busy.
Possibly teaching. Yeah.
Very busy.
Rodolfo was wondering, when you were in seminary, what was the moment that you felt closest to God? During your seminary experience, what was the moment that was closest to you?
I would say the 30-day retreat that I did over one summer, and then also we did a clinical pastoral experience. So we visited the sick in the hospital, and we spent the summer doing that. I'd say that was one of the most impactful summers for me, most impactful experiences. Just seeing God in the midst of people's suffering and their pain, and being able to be there and walk with them during that time was very beautiful and also very challenging. But that was maybe one of the highlights of my seminary experience. Yeah.
Did you ever have a time when you said, ask yourself, man, this might have been a mistake?
You do, yes. But that's why it's not reliant on us. We rely on Him. So you can ask yourself that, but at the end of the day, it's a saying yes to God's plan, and you let Him work out those difficulties or those doubts. So occasionally you do have those moments, but we also have, that's why we spend 7 years in seminary, to make, is this really what God is calling you? And then this is what you choose. So.
Father John, is there a particular saint or saints that you felt close to or aligned with that you prayed to and that you felt you were aligned with or you prayed to for help?
Yes, actually my confirmation saint, St. Patrick, because he was a missionary saint in Ireland. And then a surprising saint that I really didn't know about, but who's a patron of seminarians and priests, was St. Therese of Lisieux. And I never thought to pray to her. She's the little flower. But sometimes these saints find you. So there were a couple of retreats that I had where this saint, she came up, and so she's been one of my big saints that I'm devoted to, actually. Yeah, the little way. So.
I want to give a testimony about Father John, and that is the day of his ordination. You know, people go there to receive a blessing, and I got into his father and his mother because I had to step to go to the bathroom, and when I knelt, not only he gave me the blessing, he gave the blessing to my ministry at the Yale. You know, he did it with his own. I didn't ask him. So Father John is with us. Believe me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Así como él vino a compartir con nosotros, ya yo le di la disponibilidad de la agrupación y de todos los agrupados que puedan ayudarlo en su nueva misión. Cualquier apostolado que se le presente, cualquier situación, es bueno que nos hagamos presentes. ¿Me oyó, John? Cualquier agrupado te puede ayudar, que se haga disponible en tu nuevo ministerio, con tu pastoral, la agrupación. Si algo necesitas, nos lo dejas saber. Bien.